Hanna Murry on TRE in the afternoon.
Good afternoon. Joining us on the line now is Scott Flynn, who has had an affinity for understanding the inherent properties of human and objective nature since young adulthood. His new book is Love Outpouring, Experiencing Ever-Present Happiness by Illuminating and Eliminating the Difference Between Who You Are and What You Have Mistaken Yourself to Be. In the book, Scott utilizes the perennial philosophy of non-duality to point you back to yourself. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Thank you for having me.
A pleasure. Thank you for joining us. So what is non-duality, first of all?
Yes, non-duality is the English word for the Indian philosophy of Advaita Vedanta, where Advaita literally means not two, so non-duality, and Vedanta we could say is a philosophy. But in Indian terms, their philosophies are ways of life. It's a way of being. And it's a way of oneness. And according to Advaita, this oneness is a one reality. And this one reality, they say, is yourself. So with a capital S. And this yourself is the home of peace and happiness and love and joy and beauty and contentment. And so if you turn your attention to the oneness of yourself, then you experience these beautiful qualities permanently, regardless of what life is presenting to you.
Permanent happiness?
Permanent happiness. The reason it's permanent is because we all know that when we sit with ourselves and are honest with ourselves, that we are permanent. There's something within us that's permanent. And that permanence is ourself. It's the essence that we all know that we are. That we are conscious, that we're aware, that we have, you could say, being. It's our being is permanent. And so if you turn your attention to this permanence of being, aka the permanence of yourself, you can experience these beautiful qualities permanently in your life.
Yeah, I'm sort of trying to understand exactly what you mean, because obviously terrible things happen in lives to us, and whether it's to do with relationship, money, or loved ones passing away. I'm sort of struggling to understand how we can be happy all the time, or why we would want to be.
Well, the message of non-duality does not deny anything that's happening in life at all, because at its core, it is unconditional acceptance. Your being unconditionally accepts life for whatever life is presenting at that time. So we just let life be life. What this message is saying is that turn your attention back to the one who's having this life. And this one who's having this life could be described in a few ways. We could call it ego. We could call it sense of individualism or the sense of person. There's this contraction within us that we believe ourselves to be, this person and this ego. And when you turn your attention back onto that sense, you realize that sense isn't there, that there is no ego, there is no person here. And when that is realized, what remains is the infiniteness of yourself. And so when you rest in yourself, you just know yourself. And so as you peer out onto the world is still being the world and what you said, and it's got its tremendous challenges. It's just you're experiencing the world from a sense of peace and happiness.
Okay. And with the title of your book, then, Love Outpouring, where does that come from?
So when you realize this, you have nothing but unconditional love for the message and for life, because yourself is unconditional love. That your being, that your consciousness is love itself. And so when you know that inherently and directly, it expresses itself through this love, which I call love outpouring. It's a radiance of you.
And what's the sort of kind of premise behind the book in terms of why you wrote it? What do you want people to get from this then?
Well, I wrote it for two reasons. One is to demonstrate my love and gratitude for the culture, the Indian culture that provided this knowledge that set me free. And the book is primarily for those that want to experience this as well. So I feverishly, throughout Love Outpouring, have examples and practices and exercises and questions for the reader to be able to understand what it means to turn your attention back in to yourself and start to remember these beautiful qualities of yourself. So the premise of the book is for the reader to experience ever-present happiness.
And does it go back to the idea that, we can't change other people or other people's behavior? We can only look at ourselves?
Yes. I like to say that you perceive the world as you experience yourself. So if you experience yourself as a mind and a body that's contained in this skin, you're limited, you're separate from all other matter or objects in the world, then you're going to have a sense of separation within you. That's a sense of lack. And in that sense of lack is where all of our personal issues come from, our fears and anxieties and so on. But if you experience yourself as the oneness of totality, of the one reality that Advaita is pointing to, then there is no separation there. There's only unity. And in that unity, you lose the ability to experience suffering, and you lose the ability to hate and harm not only others, but yourself.
And you talk in the book about self-realization. How do we get that?
Yes, that is the primary premise of this book. So that's like, how do I attain this message? And that is by answering the question, who am I? And what is suggested is that it's a meditation-like practice that you train your attention to turn inward back into yourself. And you start to refamiliarize yourself with who you have always been. So it's a turning your attention away from the world, from the objective world, back onto the non-objective experience of yourself.
Okay.
And that's known as self-realization, or enlightenment would be another word, or awakening, you could say.
Yeah.
You're awakening to the one reality, which is yourself.
When did you have this realization yourself, and what were you like before?
I've always been myself, and so have you, and so have all 8 billion of us. We get caught up in our identities. We start to identify ourselves as our identities and as our attributes. And all this is saying is, no, just turn away from the identities and the attributes back to the one who thinks it has those identities and those attributes. So to my earlier point, nothing new comes into play here because you have always been yourself. Right? I mean, if you could ask yourself the question now, like, how many of there are me? There's only one of me. Okay, so this is an understanding on how you turn back into that one of yourself.
Okay, amazing. Well, it's a complicated subject, it sounds, so people obviously need to get the book if they want to find out more. It's called Love Outpouring, and it's available on our website, tre.radio. It's by Scott Flynn, who we've been chatting with today. Scott, thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.